I cannot believe it has only been 3 months since I vowed to stop the hunger in Cirro, and 1 month since I founded a band of thieves to help me. In the first 2 months, I trained my body, making it both stronger and faster. At the same time, I practiced moving quietly and getting from one side of the city to the other as quickly as I could without alerting any pony. I also learned how to pick locks and broke into a few houses as practice. Of course, they weren't guarded houses, and I didn't steal anything from them, but it was good practice. After I had gotten confident in my skills, I began to seek out others who felt the same way I did, and were capable thieves. A month ago, I recruited 4 of them, and we soon discovered an old church near the center of town in the Stratos district. It had been closed down due to it being hazardous, and many of its patrons had died from starvation. Most of the city now attends the large church in the north. The day we found this old church, we made it our hideout, and founded our band of thieves. It was a nice place, and despite being a little bit run down. It was secluded, and had plenty of places to hide, if we ever got raided. There was also a bell tower, which gave a nice view of the city. It would be a place to hide the food that we stole until we could give it away. And, for 2 of our 5 members, it would be a place for them to call home. Those 2, Lunk and Pocket, were orphaned brothers whose parents died in the war. They were refugees from the world below. Until now, they had been living on the streets, stealing to survive. Lunk had a cutie mark of a door lock, while Pocket had one of a lockpick. They were both completely black and blended in well with night. Having only dark yellow coat myself, I was a bit envious, as I was easier to spot. Even though I was only there some of the time, the rest of the group insisted that I take the room that would have been the priest's office. The room still had its desk, chair, a bookcase, and some books on it. However, I soon furnished the walls with maps of various parts of the cities, which showed guard routes and other such useful information. I put some straw on the ground in a corner for a makeshift bed, should I need to sleep over. I also hung up our wanted posters, sort of like trophies. There were only 2 at the moment, because 3 of us didn't have pictures. Unfortunately, the other 2 members of the group, Sapphire, a blue-coated mare with a dagger cutie mark, and Glint, a white-coated buck with a cutie mark that resembled mist, were each seen stealing by some guards while escaping from a heist previous to joining up with us. Sapphire and Glint both belonged to poorer families and lived relatively close to each other. They became friends before the war, and once the rationing set in, they turned to stealing together to get more food for their families, similar to me. However, unlike me, they had larger families. Since they get along and work well together, they always stick together, and I like to assign them the same part of the jobs. Personally, I think they like each other a little more than just friends, but neither of them will admit it, or show it very openly. The rest of the church consisted of 6 rooms, besides the massive one, which was filled with pews and other such things which we used to discuss strategies for upcoming jobs. 2 of these rooms were used for storage for the stolen food, and storage for our supplies, such as noisemakers, lockpicks, spare sacks, that kind of stuff. The other 4 rooms became the rooms of the rest of the group, and each one arranged it to their own tastes. Each had a straw bed in them, but Lunk and Pocket made theirs a bit more livable, as they didn't have homes to go back to. Nevertheless, despite having the old church become like a second home to me, I always tried to go back to my own home each night. I didn't want to make my parents any more suspicious than they already were. It would be continued to only bring 1 food item back, every so often, despite my group getting a large amount from the richer ponies. What we didn't sparingly eat ourselves, we would store up for a few days before carefully handing it out to those starving in the streets. Slowly, the number of deaths caused by starvation alone were reduced. Despite this, malnutrition continued to run rampant, and this led to sickness. While the sicknesses were easily curable, many times those who had no jobs and couldn't afford the treatment would die of the sickness. And while the amount of dead lining the streets went down from starvation, sickness made sure that our streets would never be free of corpses. A knocking wakes me from my thoughts. "Hey, Flora, you ready? We are going to have to start things without you if you don't hurry up." I shake my head and regain my senses before saying, Yeah, I'll be right out, Lunk. Thanks." I heard his hoofsteps as he walked to the heart of the church. That's right, I thought to myself. Tonight is the planning of our 4th heist. I smile to myself as I grab a few maps from the wall and head over to Lunk. When I get closer, I see that all 4 of my friends are already sitting and waiting in the pews up front. Sapphire sees me coming and says with a giggle, Well, looks who decided to show up." I approach the altar and turn to face them, closing my eyes and taking a deep breath. I open them, unroll the maps, and slam them down on the floor so everyone can see. I point at the first map, a map of Cirro. All right. Our target for tomorrow is Crest Manor in the Cumulus district. Previous scouting has gotten us the basic layout, not to mention the floor plans, courtesy of the Architects Guild. Right, Saphira? She smirked and nodded, having stolen the floor plans the previous night. I continued. We also know that their windows are barred, doors are deadlocked, and they have a private guard of around 20. Lunk and Pocket exchanged excited glances, happy to put their skills to the test. Like the majority of the manors in the Cumulus district, Crest has a roof access, which is unlocked, but under guard by no less than 5 at all times. Crest is a unique manor, however. It has a cellar entrance in the alleyway behind it for deliveries, but it is kept locked. Only tomorrow, it'll be left unlocked. A certain servant of the manor doesn't particularly like the manor's owners, and has agreed to unlock it for us for a short time. Now then, on to the actual plan. I move aside the map of the city and bring the maps of the house to the forefront. Lunk, Pocket, we are going through the cellar. 2 guards are in it, and we will take them out quick and quiet. The servants and the owner keep to the 1st and 2nd floor at night, so we should be alone in the cellar after that. Leave the food in the cellar alone until we leave. We will then sneak up to the 1st floor and make our way into the kitchen. If we encounter anyone, knock them out. Once in the kitchen, grab any food you can find, but don't rob them blind. If we leave them foodless, we are no better than they are. Once we've obtained a decent amount of food, we'll return to the cellar, loot it, and get out. Sapphire and Glint, since every pony knows you're thieves already, you'll be the distraction. 5 minutes after we go in, fly up to the rooftop and take out the guards up there, if you can. If not, just get their attention and have them chase you around the city. Do what you will, but be out in 15 minutes. I want this to get done quickly and smoothly. If we get spotted, split up and lose the guards. Make sure you lose them and head back to the church. Don't be followed. And, if the worst happens, and you get caught, remember, you work alone. Any questions? I asked. My 4 comrades shook their heads. Good. Then get some rest and meet here tomorrow night, before the job. I started to roll with the maps as my friends wandered off. Lunk and Pocket headed to their rooms while Sapphire and Glint went to leave the church. I went back to my room in the church and put the maps where they belonged, before heading home myself. Night fell the following day, and we gathered in the church to go over the plan briefly one last time. We put on saddlebags, mostly empty, from the storage rooms along with other equipment like lockpicks and noisemakers, and threw on black robes to blend in with the night. Having prepared for tonight's job, we set off for the Cumulus district and Crest Manor. We clung to the shadows and back alleys, moving as quickly and quietly as we could. The night continued to grow darker as we made our way to Sincrest Manor. The night was quiet, aside from the occasional refugee coughing from sickness or groaning in hunger. We made our way past these groups, but they were too distracted in their own worries to pay us any mind. It wasn't long before we go through the gates of the Cumulus district and nestle upon a rooftop of buildings away from Sincrest Manor. I nod to Sapphire and Glint as Lunk, Pocket, and I fly down to the back alley and approach the cellar door of Sincrest Manor. I look at Lunk and Pocket and say, "Okay, guys, 5 minutes till Sapphire and Glint start the distraction. Keep as quiet as possible till then." They nod, and we quietly lift the cellar door and slip inside. Like the servant said, there were only 2 guards inside of it. They were sitting around a table at the other end of the cellar, and I wave a hoof towards them as I looked at Pocket and Lunk. They smile as they begin to creep towards the guards, whose backs were turned to us. As they neared the guards, they grabbed their heads and slammed them into each other, knocking them out. "Good work," I whispered to them. "The first obstacle's out of the way." I looked around the cellar, and it was packed with various kinds of food and bottled ciders and wines. I noted the locations of everything, while Lunk and Pocket checked the hallway outside the cellar. Seconds later, I joined them and quietly followed the map in my head towards the kitchen. The hallway was basically just a divider between rooms, and the cellar door was at the end of it. The kitchen was the second door on the right down the hallway after exiting the cellar. The first door on the right was a storage closet, and there was a room on the left, which was a library. Further down the hall and on the left was an atrium of sorts, with stairs leading to the second floor and other hallways branching out on the first floor leading to various other rooms. As we make our way down the hallway, I slightly open the doors to the closet and library and have a peek inside. As expected, the storage closet is empty and has no food in it, just cleaning supplies. In the library, however, sits an old buck reading a book next to a fireplace. While I look at him, a large amount of hoofbeats sound above us on the second floor. Moments later, a guard rushes into the library from the opposite side of the room and strides up to the buck I'm looking at. The old buck shuts his book and glances up at the guard before saying flatly, "What is all that commotion? I'm trying to read." The guard hesitated for a moment before replying, "Nothing to worry yourself with, sir. Just some hoodlums on the roof. We shall take care of them immediately. Sorry to disturb you, sir." The old buck narrowed his eyes and said, "See that you do, and be quiet about it." The guard nodded and left the room from the door he came from, while the old buck returned to reading. I quietly closed the doors and grinned at my 2 companions. The distraction was working. All the guard should be heading to the roof, though those hoodlums might just give the guards a run for their money. I returned my attention to the task at hand and continued down the hallway towards the kitchen. However, as we neared the door, some hoofsteps came from the atrium. I quickly wave Lunk and Pocket back and point towards the supply closet. They both enter quickly and quietly, and with me right behind them. We push together inside the tight quarters of the closet, and I close the doors most of the way after us, so I could barely see outside. As I watched the atrium door, it opens, and a mare comes out, who goes to the kitchen. "Stay here," I whisper to Lunk and Pocket as I creep outside of the closet. I stick to the wall and move towards the kitchen door and carefully look inside. The mare is getting some food from one of the pantries, and I watch as she does so and begins to walk back towards the door I'm at. I backpedal to the closet with Lunk and Pocket and wait for the mare to leave once again, when she does show shortly after. Several minutes pass since Glint and Sapphire began their distraction. With her out of the way, Lunk, Pocket, and I enter the kitchen and begin to fill our packs with any food we can find. There is so much, it's almost dizzying. They have bread, apples, jam, carrots, hay, and much more. Plenty of each. We soon have our packs almost full, and head back to the cellar. By this time, about 10 more minutes had passed, and Glintz and Sapphire should be pulling out about now. We fill our bags the rest of the way with ciders and other food from the cellar, and get ready to leave the way we came in. However, just as we're about to exit the doors, one of the guards we had knocked out earlier wakes up, sees us, and shouts, "Thieves! Thieves in the cellar!" Without skipping a beat, he gets shakily to his hooves and attempts to wake his companion. Startled, Lunk, Pocket, and I just stand there staring. But when the guard's attempt to wake his companion fail, and he begins walking unsteadily towards us, I snap back to reality, nudge Pocket and Lunk, and hiss, "Go!" We fly out the door, and the guard comes crashing out of the cellar behind us. The three of us fly up to the rooftops and look around for Sapphire and Glint, who we spot quickly. Without wasting a moment, we give them a few of our bags, so we are each carrying an equal amount, and then split up. As long as we follow the plan, everything should work out. I look back towards the manor to see guards flying towards us from both the cellar door and the rooftop entrance. I pour on the speed and dive into the alleys below, cutting off the line of sight from my pursuers. By this time, word has spread and the alarm has been sounded, and the city guard joins in the pursuit. Now things get complicated. They will be watching the skies and the district gates, and moving in the open will be very dangerous. Luckily, I know these streets better than any pony else, and there are always ways to stay on the ground, moving between the districts, and not go through the gates. But for right now, I need to stay put for a short while. Maybe let the guards think I got away, or wait till they thin out. I stay put in the darkness of an alleyway, huddling between two carts, waiting for a chance to escape.